So what is going on, The Last of Us fans? It's your boy Amaziah here, bringing you guys some information from IGN for The Last of Us Part 2 demo that they got. This stuff is going to be like pertaining to the gameplay things that they found and other things. One interesting thing I want to note though, because I don't think that they verified it here, but of course you can see it in the video, is that Ellie, you know how Ellie was into like a lot of reading into stuff like that, to find out stuff about like the past world and stuff like comic books and reading into. Remember that time she got like the little homosexual porn magazine, and she like saw the picture with the guy with like the long schlong and shit. That shit was hilarious, dude. But apparently they actually this. Oh my god, the attention to detail here. But that's now become like a way that she learns certain things because she picked up this Hunter Quarterly magazine, the Ultimate Guide for Survivors, as it's called. And she gained a new ability, or she learned some new like crafting item that she could make from it. So they took that curiosity from Ellie's character within The Last of Us Part 1 and added it onto like made it into a gameplay aspect for her basically. And that's wild, dude. That's fucking wild. That's paying attention to detail because they put into the story that Ellie liked to read, to find out stuff about the old world and find out new things, and now that's part of how you can enhance her skill set. So let's go ahead and read the information that they gave us. So the first set that we have here is setting. Our demo introduced us to two different settings for the game: Jackson, Wyoming, and Seattle, Washington, a location previously teased in past trailers. Jackson is the site of Ellie and Joel's home at the start of the sequel. Ellie can still pick up various items and notes around the world, though they have much greater fidelity and detail this time around. When Ellie first gets handed a Molotov cocktail bottle, unlit, don't worry, by Dina, the player can rotate the bottle in Ellie's hand and the liquid moves realistically. That wasn't something to truly tell us about because the liquid moved in part 1 as well. When Ellie and Dina are exploring another survivor's weed den, oh my god, they stumble upon some porn VHS. Oh my god, VHS tapes. One is named A Clear Crash Bandicoot Pun. Smash Brandy's Cooch. Oh my god. The Last of Us Part 2 is not open world, but will have wider spaces that allow characters to investigate its periphery to learn more about the world and characters. So, with all of this information crunched down, basically, the world is a lot more open. And in the demo, they got to play through Jackson, Wyoming, and of course, Seattle, Washington. Now, these are, of course, cut off little splice sections of it, as the gameplay that we've gotten to see from, like, the gameplay cuts is more or less just like exactly that very beginning area where they go on the little patrol. I'm guessing it ends probably when Dina goes missing or when her and Ellie get separated. That could be potentially where it ends, as of course most of that gameplay does seem to be with them two characters together. With the Jackson stuff, I believe that gameplay ends right when Joel is brought into the story, because they already revealed Joel for the story and stuff. So obviously, I think that that's where it ends in the Seattle portion. And my reasoning for this is because if you once again look at the gameplay cuts for it, you get to see where they enemies are talking, or the WLF enemies. They're talking about a man causing a wreck and all of that stuff. So let's go ahead and read on into the gameplay stuff, as there's interesting gameplay things that they put in here as well. So it says the listenability returns, allowing Ellie to hear through walls and sense where infected and human enemies are located nearby. The listenability now lets players see the scent trail Ellie leaves behind when enemy dogs are nearby. Ellie and Dina ride on horseback in one level, and your horses are thankfully quite loyal and smart. If you run too far away from them, they'll amble their way over to your location, so you don't have to crisscross a level to get to them. Dogs can be distracted with a tossed bottle or brick, but eventually, if you get too near them again, or a new dog, they'll pick your scent back up. Trap mines, stun bombs, Molotov cocktails, pistol with silencers, and med kits can all be crafted from items found around the environment. Weapons can be upgraded once again with parts collected throughout the world. Ellie can make these upgrades throughout the world at workbenches she finds. Weapons include a shotgun, rifle, pistol, revolver, and bow and arrow. Ellie did not have a bow during the Jackson, Wyoming portion of the demo, but later got one along the way in Seattle. Arrows can be recovered after successful headshots, and new arrows can be crafted from gathered materials. Ellie has upgrade skill trees. Ellie can earn new abilities by collecting the necessary amount of pill bottles throughout the world. Some of the skills we saw included increased health, increased movement speed during listen mode, and increased speed of medkits. So this does seem like as if they remember I said in one video, if you've been watching my The Last of Us coverage, that some of the abilities from the factions in P could be added into the story because they really were good abilities that potentially could balance out the experience of the main game. And it does seem like they did add that because I remember increased movement speed during listen, if I'm not mistaken, and if I'm remembering correctly, was something that you could only get for factions MP. It was literally one of the factions MP little perks that you could get. Also, the same thing can be said with healing faster. Um, the increased health wasn't one of them, but apparently you can increase. I think that was one for the story mode in the original game, but it wasn't one for the multiplayer. An increased speed of medkits. So that was also one of the ones that you could get within factions and P. So I mean that is a good ability to have because if you ever get like some downtime during a confrontation, like because once the enemies go on search, they literally do stay on search forever. As far as like The Last of Us Part One was concerned, if not forever, I've never found myself in a situation to where they went out of search mode, to where like they went back to normal. For me, they always stayed in search mode. So being able to heal up a little bit quicker was a good addition to the story. Let me put it like that. Ellie can jump thanks to a dedicated jump button. Ellie can also dodge in combat thanks to a dedicated dodge button. Ellie can crouch for cover or lay prone on the ground. And we've seen this, I think, in the new trailer. They showed off her crouching and getting onto the ground. Ellie is able to hide in grass, but if not completely covered, can be noticed by an approaching enemy. Naughty Dog has introduced a new type of infected, the Shambler, a slower but more powerful enemy type. Other infected that returned in the demo were runners and clickers. Common enemies call each other by name and have relationships with one another, so killing one may alert others on a personal level. So let's talk about the Shambler first. Because the Shambler, I believe, is the one that we saw that broke through the wall in the trailer. Also, there's one that releases a smoke cloud, and I'm not 100% sure if that's the Shambler. It's not a smoke cloud. It's like a spore cloud, basically. But it's let's say a smoke cloud for easy wording. Naughty Dog introduced them into the game, and what's interesting is that Neil Druckmann actually stated that there's going to be a legitimate reason within the story as to why Shamblers exist now, because they already outlined in The Last of Us Part 1 that there was stages to the infection, and the stages went the regular runner, to the ones that sneak up on you. I think they were called stealthers. And then stealthers go on to basically become clickers. And if they last for like years, if they survive for like years, then clickers eventually become bloaters. And then they add in the Shambler here, which I'm guessing is going to be a diverged evolution from a clicker, because Shamblers do have a lot more of that plating on them from like the cordyceps infection, kind of like the bloaters, but they move a lot. They move slowly, just like the bloaters do. And if Shamblers and the ones that cause those spore clouds are one and the same, then of course we did see in the trailer to where like they can actually break through walls and stuff like that. So they do have a lot of power. I think bloaters are like the highest ascension, but I think these are like the diverged off paths of like the bloaters, because the bloaters also had like those little fungi sacs that could grow on them that they could throw and create like the spore things. But the thing about that was that like they kind of had to get they had to aim it at you and throw it at you, and if you got too far away from it, then that was pretty much the end of that. But when it came to or shall I say, when it comes to the Shamblers, they also move slow, but this time their ability to spread the spores are more so connected to them themselves, which I don't understand how the spores would work on Ellie per se, but I think that that's exactly what Neil Druckmann meant, that there's going to be an evolution to the cordyceps infection, that now the cordyceps kind of can affect Ellie, or potentially it can stun Ellie. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't necessarily infect her, but it can probably stun her or trip her up or cause her to like start coughing and things like that. So, of course, maybe she's still kind of like not allergic to it, but it does cause an allergy reaction if she gets hit by those spores. So, that's why I wanted to pinpoint those out. So the next section is the characters within The Last of Us Part 2. And Joel and Ellie live in a large settlement in Jackson, Wyoming at the start of The Last of Us Part 2. Dina lived there before the two arrived, but has become Ellie's best friend. Joel still loves watching cheesy action movies, and he and Ellie on the night of the patrol level in our hands on the demo. Oh, in our hands-on demo, had plans to watch one. So that means their plans get interrupted, and yes, the patrol is when whatever happens to set Ellie off is when it goes down. Ellie's horse is named Shimmer, and Dina's is named Japan. Ellie is one of the members of the Jackson, Wyoming settlement who goes out on daily expeditions to survey the area and ensure its safety. Ellie wears a gas mask during a section of The Last of Us Part 2 demo, though as we know from the first game, she's immune to the cordyceps virus. We don't know why she's wearing the mask, but our best guess is it's to keep up appearances and not reveal her secret. You've seen part of Ellie and Dina's conversation down in the weed basement where they discussed the kiss they had from the E3 2018 The Last of Us Part 2 showcase. I watched the full cutscene during my demo. Dina rates the kiss a 6 in a very teasing, affectionate way. Ellie's time in Seattle introduces the WLF, or the Washington Liberation Front. They're a militant group who have taken over the area and are xenophobic, imprisoning or killing those who trespass on their territory. Ellie has come to Seattle to rescue Tommy, Joel's brother. So pretty much this is like a breakdown of the characters that we get to see within The Last of Us Part 2, or that they got to see within the demo. And where I'm going to point my interest to is the WLF, which are xenophobic. If you don't know what xenophobic means, it's basically like, it's kind of an extreme nationalist kind of character trait. It's more so like, they don't like people from the outside coming in. And I can presume that this comes from the martial law enforcement of, like, the military, or I can never seem to remember what fucking group that was that enforced the martial law on behalf of the government in the massive cities. Seattle, of course, would count as one of these massive cities. So I'm guessing that that's exactly why the WLF formed, because they try to keep outsiders from coming in. They try to keep outsiders from coming in to kind of try and ensure that, martial law doesn't take over their city again, or that, no, I guess moles get into their organization. You know what I'm saying? Poison in the well, so to speak. Another place I want to focus my attention is what happens with Tommy. So we do know that, of course, Tommy apparently is engaged in the conversation with Ellie after whatever sets her off, as he's the character. We can clearly hear him saying that, she doesn't know how big this group is, how, like, powerful this group is, how armed they are, and all kind of things like that. So if he's the character that's telling her that, this really makes me wonder exactly what happens with the story. But I'm gonna go out on a limb and theorize that potentially Ellie and Tommy are gonna set out first, and Tommy's gonna get taken, and Ellie's probably gonna feel like, she can't show her face around Joel with whatever happened to Tommy. And with Ellie going missing, of course, that's what prompts Joel to go on the search too. And then, over time, he may potentially find out what happens with Ellie. Remember, Joel is Very fucking brutal. Remember when he had when he captured that one guy that was a part of that cannibalist group in The Last of Us Part 1, and he was like, I'm not even gonna fuck around with you. You're gonna, like, tell me where they took the girl and stuff like that. And the guy thought, like, oh man, I'm not gonna tell you shit. And Joe started, I think he like shot him in the leg or something like that, and then he shot his friend while his friend was still alive, and he let him watch his friend go through agonizing pain. And then he just shot his friend in the face, and then he was like, well, if you tell me, you basically won't share the same fate as your friend. And he was like, all right, man, I'll tell you, I'll tell you. And then Joe was like, thanks, man. And he pointed his gun at her. He was like, wait, I told you. He was like, nah, I was never going to let you live in the first place. I think it's going to be another situation like that, how he finds out exactly where Ellie is heading off to, and potentially why Ellie wound up never coming back home after heading out with Tommy to potentially go after the same people that hurt, I'm going to guess, was Dina. So thank you guys for tuning into this video. This is a little bit of information from IGN, of course. What exact writer of this was this? So that way I can give them their proper credits. It was Jonathan Dornbush who actually put out this information. So thanks, Jonathan, for this information. And of course, I hope you guys enjoyed this The Last of Us video, me keeping you guys up to date with some information that came from the demo. You may see another video like this talking about another perspective or going more into depth with things. Of course, IGN, as always, put out their little videos, so I will leave a link to this so that way if you want to, you can go check out the videos and see like the little information tidbits that they have within those videos and stuff like that, as you also will get to see the gameplay. But I'm going to keep on going forward with my The Last of Us information videos, and I hope you guys enjoy this content, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace the heck